call LNG a fully sustainable solution, but it is an interim solution.
LNG being an up to 30% greener fuel.
We will now have a fireside chat, Fueling the Future, LNG Technology and its Path Towards Automotive Sustainability. I invite the moderator, Rajarshi, Assistant Editor, ITLN, our panelist, A. Subramanian, Chief Technology Officer, Blue Energy Motors, and Charles Devlin DeCosta, Vice President, Greenline.
So welcome to this Fireside Chat, where we will be discussing and diving deep into the pivotal role LNG technology is playing in revolutionizing the automotive and logistics sector. And this is clearly visible with recent partnerships and e-commerce players like Flipkart deploying LNG trucks all over the country. And India's recent push towards LNG for long-haul trucking presents a significant opportunity to decarbonize transportation, cut costs for fleet operators, and address these sustainability challenges. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Ramasubramanian, sir, and Charles.
Thank you.
So let's start with the most intriguing question.
Sure.
How sustainable are LNG trucks? First to Ramasubramanian, sir.
Yeah. When you talk about sustainability, I wouldn't call LNG a fully sustainable solution, but it is an interim solution. It's halfway between having a diesel truck which belches black smoke, not all of them do, and the electric vehicle, which presumably is a sustainable solution, provided you have a well-to-wheel understanding of where the electricity is produced. Now, there are lots of questions about it. We'll deal with it later. So I believe this is an interim solution, and it quite clearly addresses the major question which is asked about heavy-duty, long-distance trucks. It does better than a CNG vehicle does. And there was a gentleman, I think it was Mr. Salim, right, your name? You talked about maintenance. We will talk about it during this discussion. If I don't address it, please remind me.
Yeah. So Charles, what do you think?
So I think the path going forward is to understand what's the aspiration in India today and how is it that the users of trucks, particularly heavy commercial trucks, are looking at options so that they can start mitigating their greenhouse gases, right? And I think the one easy way by which we discovered was to be pioneers in LNG trucking. So Greenline actually rolled out the first LNG truck in India 2 years ago. Today we have a fleet of over 600 trucks. And we're very proud to say that when we put our customer in the center and we put all the cards on the table as options, then the customer would also decide more in terms of environmental goals and secondly in terms of social causes. And I think both of these things we've been able to address as Greenline. And I think in terms of the partnership with Blue Energy Motors, sourcing the kind of trucks that Blue Energy Motors has sort of put a milestone for the trucking industry in terms of LNG being an up to 30% greener fuel. Not only that, Greenline is also providing our customers with a green certificate, which is vetted by EKI, and that green certificate goes directly into your customer's business sustainability report. So there is already a journey which the customer has started when you are addressing scope 3 emissions for LNG. And I think that's the reason why I would say, in terms of sustainability, this is the first attempt towards mitigating the carbon footprint, and it's definitely a transitional fuel towards what lies ahead 10 years from now.
So I'll add a follow-up question to that. So Greenline has recently placed a 1,000 truck order of, if I'm not wrong, 850 crore rupees with Blue Energy Motors. So what made you choose Blue Energy, and what are the factors that is leading you to invest such a huge amount in LNG technology, LNG trucking?
I think it's the confidence that we get when we speak to our customers. I think we have already operationalized 600 trucks of LNG. And this is heavy commercial trucks over the last 2 years. We have a sizable order of about another 1,000 trucks that we have to provide for in the next 1 year. And I think what Blue Energy really brought to the table was bringing a product that had longer range. So looking at the fact that LNG fueling stations are not immediately available across the entire country, a longer range sort of helped us in terms of solving that problem. The second was the operational efficiency, and as compared to diesel trucks, we've seen that the trucks do have a substantial amount of efficiency when it comes to fuel mileage, which is close to about 15 to 20%. And I think the third most important thing is the fact that they have a very robust team that follows up diligently in terms of the product reliability. And that's exactly what our customers need to see. It's not just GPS and telematics that we do at our command center, but it's also the preventive diagnostics that are there on their machines that recall the machine the moment there's a problem that's about to occur. And that's the reason why our placement rates has been above 99%. So I think all of these factors put together is becoming a big problem solver for the industry today.
Right, right. So, Ramasubramanian sir, basically I would like to ask about the cost factor of LNG trucks. So we understand that LNG trucks are more expensive to make compared to diesel trucks. So can you elaborate on that part?
See, the cost of LNG trucks actually comes from, one, the engine, and second, the fuel tank. Because it's a cryogenic fuel which is kept at somewhere around minus 135 degrees. So making it safe on a high-speed truck is our primary concern. So that costs money. The second is handling a cryogenic fuel, converting it into gaseous fuel which can be used by an engine in a more economic fashion, and in order to ensure that you do not end up with problems which we heard about CNG, that costs money. So it's a fully electronic engine, fully connected. Even the fuel tank is fully connected. So we know what exactly happening with the fuel tank. And as you realize, a liquid, when it boils over and it's a mixture of various gases, its composition varies. So consequently, during the actual operation of the vehicle, it is essential to control the electronics of the engine to be able to handle a varying fuel. Now, these are complex technologies which we have mastered, let us say, to a certain extent. And I'm quite happy with the way it is working. And second, when you talk about range, range is a combination of the logistics need versus fuel availability. And we had to design it in a manner that we get somewhere around 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers, depending on application, at least. And you have to carry that quantum of fuel. And this is very much in line with the gasification project. I mean, essentially the attempt is at a first step to move away from liquid fossil fuels into a more slightly better sustainable product like LNG. So this is the first time. And second, if you ask him why he bought it, because there's no other truck available also.
That's right.
So, and we've been in the market for now 3 years. And I think it bears witness to the fact that there's been adequate engineering done. I've been in the industry now for 52 years. And I've done all trucks, including Volvo and everything else, as a manufacturer and a designer of trucks. So to that extent, it has been of great value to make this a possibility. Now, talking about emissions, we are at greenhouse gas level close to 30 to 40% better than any other fossil fuel. And then fuel consumption, as compared with anything that happens rest of the world, our fuel consumption is close to at least 30% on an equivalent basis with diesel. So these by themselves are very, very compelling figures. And the cost naturally is higher. But the sustainability of this, plus the fact that you actually break even because of the economies of scale that you have, I think somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 years, you should be able to break even with respect to a diesel. And after that, whatever you get is profit. And in terms of longevity of this vehicle, I guess it will be at least as good as diesel. And I would say we wait for a couple of more years to confirm that it is longer. My expectation is it would last longer.
So how expensive is it? Like, is there any number that we can define?
See, it is somewhere between 60 to 70% more expensive
Than diesel engine?
than diesel on a flat scale. But then when you talk about buying a truck, you have various add-ons, like AMCs, then there is a connectivity to the truck. So many of those costs, if you add on a like-to-like basis, let's say it's about 50% more.
Right. So that comes to my next question to Charles. How do you justify that cost to your customers?
So I think the initial cost of operations is definitely higher. And for us, the focus has been to partner with like-minded corporates who are very focused on sustainable goals and can create a green channel for us. And when we do that, then we're actually upping the vehicle's utilization. When we up the vehicle's utilization, there's a quicker payback. And that's the reason why we've built a system and a team that primarily looks at how is it that we can be a game changer using an expensive truck, providing a very reliable service, and then increasing the average utilization of the truck on a kilometer per month basis. And I think ever since inception, we've been doing this very progressively. And I think it's also the customer's understanding and the participation in understanding what needs to be done and being very open and clear and transparent in terms of our cost economics and how it works, that they're being able to prioritize LNG trucking as something that they would like to do. I think the immediate understanding and use that they have is that you're getting a truck almost the same price at what a diesel truck would give you, but at a higher and a much reliable service quality. And it's not just the high cost of the truck. We're also bundling this with a lot of next generation technology. We use a lot of AI, we use a lot of machine learning in terms of the operations of the truck. We are focused not just on the environmental versus cost side of the understanding for the customer, but also on the safety side of the truck drivers. And I think there was a discussion about truck drivers. Our trucks were the first in India to have air-conditioned cabins for the drivers and air suspension seats so that we can have better productivity. And we have a zero fatality rate currently. And I think that's the beauty of what technology aided design and operations actually helps make a successful case.
Right.
See, just to add to what he's saying, when you talk about AI, ML, quite often it turns out to be something which people like to hear and don't understand much about. The fundamental thing about AI ML is that when you talk about a truck which is run by cryogenic fuel, which you can't touch, two things happen. One, nobody can steal, because diesel is something which is lost because people steal. You try to touch an LNG truck, a fuel, you probably burn your hand. So there's a factor which saves you from this kind of pilferage. The second is the only way to control this truck from a technical standpoint as it's running is through the air. It is, we take it through the internet, we have a control panel, and I have a team which looks at it all the time, and we know exactly what is happening. So there is preemptive work which ensures that you do not wait for failure. You actually tell Charles, 1, 2, 3 trucks, please take it to the workshop. Now, this is a huge plus when you compare it to any vehicle that runs, where adoption of advanced technology in a part rather than in full measure actually does not give you the advantage of the technology that is prevalent in India. So we do everything in the truck in a preemptive manner. So I would say, unless you go and hammer it against a wall, there is no breakdown requirement. Of course you need to maintain it, there is no question. It's a mechanical part. So if you maintain it in a preemptive manner, the chances are that you won't end up an off-road situation.
Yeah, so Blue Energy has 3,000 more trucks in production line next year?
Yes, that's about right.
So can you tell us about the strategies of how are you ramping up the manufacturing part to meet that demand?
See, we are a very, very frugal company. You know, if you look at my engineering team, there are about 25 people. I don't think any major truck company can boast of 25 people making a truck design. That's because of the combination of experience and outsourcing of work which are not considered very high value adding. We have a very small footprint as a factory. So what we really do is we control the technology and we control market approach. As far as manufacturing is concerned, we offload many of the aggregates that are either standard or designed by us, and we do assembly in a very small plant. Okay, that's the basis. We do not want to expand it. Let's say, think about making 10,000 trucks in a 100,000 square feet factory. I mean, it wouldn't be. Now here comes every advancement you can think of in terms of logistics, in terms of supply chain, in terms of how much stock you keep of what, when everything is coming, and the predictability of the movement in the field. Now, since we are talking about numbers like 3,000 and 5,000 in a market which is 300,000, we have the luxury of doing this, right? And we also have, as they say, selective. We have been selective in our partnerships for the simple reason that you don't have to sell it to the rest of the industry. This is a seeding in order to ensure that we establish the concept. As we grow, we will find a way to do it. But as far as our factory is concerned, in 2 shifts, we have the ability to do 10,000. So I don't really have to worry.
Right. So let's come to the infrastructure part. So currently, there are around 23 LNG pumps in all over India. So how do you think collaborative efforts or investments, or what kind of investments or collaborative efforts are needed?
See, it's a combination. For example, when we start, it's a question of deciding. It's a leap of faith to start with. Now, government keeps talking about LNG pumps, LNG dispersal units, etc., and it would never come. So there, people ask you, where are the trucks? We will put it then. So we decided best is to put it in, and maybe even use Bowsers for filling up in order to take small steps in the market. So we started with maybe 100 trucks with a few people who are able to manage it. There is, I think, one in Nagpur called BLNG. There are 1 or 2 with. So this is how we started. It was 2 or 3. But once the trucks start to come in and start to demand more, all the oil companies have now started coming. 23 has happened in practically no time. I believe it will become something like 150 or 200. The second approach we had was and along with Greenline, of course, is not to sell the truck unless there is fuel. So fuel is a part of the truck's guarantee when I sell a truck. So you will never be short of fuel. Now, this is done through a combination of 2 things. One, to understand the logistics, the distance it operates, and what is the size of the tanks I need. If required, I can even give a longer distance, which we are trying out right now. But to ensure that either the infrastructure comes up, or if it doesn't, maybe our partners can do it. And today, that problem is much less compared to what we started. So consequent to which, there is a greater confidence. So if you see, 600 trucks are operating primarily in states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Maharashtra is western and central Maharashtra, and in places like Tamil Nadu, etc. Today, Delhi is still not a significant gas dispersal area. But Gujarat is leading in this area. So also Maharashtra in certain areas. Now in Pune, we have our own gas stations jointly with Greenline. So at the end of it, it's a matter of commitment, a leap of good faith. And at the end of it, when it sustains itself and there is a good demand for it, things start to happen.
Right. So Charles, can you expand on the operation side of it with limited LNG?
Yeah. So I think we're doing great. Firstly, like how Yarasa sir had said, that we do have our own gas stations as well, which therefore becomes an ecosystem that we take to the customer and solve for. So there's an assurance that gas availability is there. There are about 23 gas stations. We also work in partnership with the government PSUs, who are now being encouraged, and of course, in the next 1 year, that number will move from 25 to 100 plus gas stations. The existing footprint of Greenline in combination with our own gas stations as well as the government PSUs is currently it expands in terms of an operational network from, let's say, Sonipat on the north side of it, right down to Kerala and Kanyakumari as well, because we also have gas stations in Madurai, and the range of a truck is about 1400 kilometers. On the west, we operate from the extremities of Gujarat right up to Chhattisgarh. So I think what by and large is left to cover, which we would see in the next 3 to 6 months, is a network of gas stations that will emerge in deep northeast as well as in the northeast part of the country. And I think over the next 1 year, we would see the entire country being covered with the availability of LNG gas stations across. And I think you would have known that the government has been encouraging the PSUs to convert more and more of their existing, let's say, CNG stations, gas stations into LNG stations. And I think they also have self-asserted targets. We are in discussion with IOCL, BPCL, and GAIL for the setting up of these stations on critical catchment areas where our customers need our trucks. So for example, since we are moving towards the east, Odisha and West Bengal has also become areas where we would be deploying trucks, and therefore the need for gas stations to come up there is also, is also the need of the hour. So I think the great partnership that we have with PSUs as well as the understanding of how LNG works within our system has sort of helped us move this forward in a very progressive way.
Just to add to what he's saying, I don't know how many of you know, India imports roughly about 40 to 45% of its fuel requirement, especially in gas. Now, there's no way of transporting gas across the world except as a liquefied product. So Australia, of course, has got the largest floating platform for LNG, but I suppose wherever you get it from Qatar or wherever you get, it comes as a liquid gas. And what do? You actually gasify it into PNG, piped natural gas. It comes to your house, it goes to the various CNG stations where you pump it and then use it. Which means you have massive stations which are converting it into gas. Now you're talking about converting it into liquid. There's no need. You get LNG, you use it as it is. That's one big advantage. Consequent to which we believe that the cost of LNG over a period once the consumption settles down will drop and become more economical. And second, if you're going to use gas in the liquefied form and we actually have a gas plant on the truck, it is a far more decentralized way of working, and you don't have to have such huge degasification plants. And then, of course, mess around with pipelines and pumps and pressures. And at the end of the day, you pressurize CNG to about 250 bar, usability around 200 to 230 bar. And you have a bomb on your truck because if it starts to leak, it's enough to propel the vehicle by itself. And the range that you get in that, the density is close to about 0.12, 0.13, something like that. So, which is roughly about 1/3 of what LNG is. So, these are a lot of advantages. Of course, it is at -130. So, you have to be careful on how you handle. So, if you know how to handle liquid oxygen or liquid nitrogen, you know how to handle liquid fuels. It is now catching up. It is a transition fuel, without a doubt. It is definitely more sustainable than the traditional fossil fuels. And I suppose for India, if you want heavy trucks as the basis of transporting anything that is actually here, this appears to be an interim fuel which might work better than diesel. And at least we have as a mission in our company when we started, and I started designing this when it was COVID period and doing it in my computer at home. The mission was that I don't want to do diesel trucks. I've done it for 50 years. I said, no more diesels. It's going to be only sustainable fuels. So the first thing we thought of was LNG retrofits. We said, no. It's too complex a technology to try retrofits. It's better to do it as an OEM. And I think we have come this far. Are we going to stop here? Of course not.
Yeah, so what are the challenges of using an LNG truck, especially the maintenance side and the after sales part?
See, I don't know you want to handle it, but I can do that. LNG as a fuel is a mixture. You know, about anywhere between 88 and 93% is methane. And then it is C2, C3, C4, which is ethane, butane, propane. And then you have ammonia and the rest of the trace gases. Very little sulfur, so the chances of sulfides coming out is not there. Now, what really happens, you know that when gas burns, there is a fractionation which is differentiated. The lighter gases go away, the heavier get sustained. Now, this is a complex thing to handle. Now, I think I can now say I'm a little conservative, but considering my experience and age, because I always said that experience is a man's journey from cocksure ignorance to knowledgeable uncertainty. You know, so I am in that phase of uncertainty. So, without necessarily being very modest, I would say we have kind of mastered how to handle this variation in the fuel through electronic management of the engines. So that was a very critical part of the development. This is as far as the fuel is concerned. Second, gas is very dry compared to diesel and everything else, and it doesn't have too much lubricity. So you have to handle the engine in such a manner that the engine is able to sustain a dry gas combination. Third is it's a difficult gas to burn overall because of the variation. So you need spark plugs and everything else. So to that extent, compared to diesel, the compression ratios are a little lower, but it is still higher than petrol because it is not as combustible. So these are some of the challenges when it comes to the engine. Of course, handling a big 1,000 liter or 2,000 liter tank having minus 135 degrees is a technology by itself. It has to have heaters and everything else. So when you have complexities of this kind, maintenance of each one of that becomes important. So what we do is we have probably 900 points in the whole vehicle, which are actually monitored through either the vehicle performance parameters or through sensors. And we know exactly where everything stands. And based on that, there is a certain predictability of maintenance, that what to do when. Now, all of us have been brought up in an environment where we feel preventive maintenance is a waste of time, and the best way to do maintenance is to wait for it to break down. I think we all have to learn one thing, that even if a thing looks good, it's a good idea to throw it away and fit something new, because if you don't do that, at the most inconvenient time, it gives way. So the whole idea of sustained development of a truck is such that while you're doing testing, you also establish these factors and have multiplicity of periods at which, let us say, every 30,000, every 60,000, you do the following. Then the chances are a very high percentage of the vehicles will go without a problem. Okay. Now, third comes the drivers. I think the question asked about drivers, I completely empathize with. I have been in this industry for very, very long. First and foremost, I think everybody, including the people who operate trucks, have to learn to respect drivers as a part of the family, as somebody who is handling a very, very expensive asset. That will first go halfway to improve the life of the driver. Second, give him training and a product and an environment which he will enjoy. So very mandatory is you give him proper uniforms, you give him an AC cabin, and you also tell him what to look for. He has a dashboard which has got about 120 parameters which is monitored, and it pops up if something goes wrong. So if something like that happens, you should know, stop, call up somebody. So he is equipped. So he is no longer a driver, he is a pilot of a high product. And whenever he sees something like this, or either if there is a serious emergency, you have to stop where you are, or when he stops, he has to come back and tell you that this is what is happening. Then actions can be taken. So what you're converting the driver into is somebody who's your partner in the management of this asset.
Right.
I think that's a very critical part of how we manage. Now, either Greenline in its operational sense and we in terms of how to manage the maintenance of the vehicles, because we take full responsibility of ensuring the truck is on road. And that is done through what I call as sustained logical, don't like to call it preventive maintenance. We ensure on-road time. And for that, whatever needs to be done should be done.
Right, that's quite an elaborative answer. But Charles, can you add on something on the challenges part that you or your customers face on the operational side of it?
See, in terms of the operation side of it, it's more about making sure that there's a strong network available for the availability of LNG stations. And I think now with that journey being paid, even this will be put aside. The other is, of course, the availability of drivers. And I think we've had several camps. We even, recently renamed Drivers' Day to Sarathi Divas. And we had various driver festivals educating drivers at various parts so that drivers could be encouraged to take a look at what we're doing, get on our trucks and be educated. We have a very robust training that we had to invest on for our drivers so that when they get behind the wheel, like Sir had said, is that they are very well equipped and they know what to do when. Apart from the truck in itself that is given to us, we actually have dashboard cam visibility on our truck. So the driver is aided with 6 ADAS cameras. And a couple of interesting things, like there's been a lot of atrocities by the police to drivers, right? They come, they smash down your rear view mirror, they bang your vehicle, and they demand all kinds of things. And when you have a truck aided with 6 cameras capturing every moment live, then even that has stopped happening. So when I speak to the drivers, and it's not just mining and cement and steel that we're doing. We are also doing FMCG, we're doing high-speed trucking with e-commerce, we're doing high-dense cargoes, batteries, automotives, everything. So when I speak to drivers today he feels extremely safe behind the wheel as when we started the journey, right? In fact, some of the technology that we give him is self-triggered. So if he feels he's going through a difficult area, he can self-trigger and all 6 cameras record at the same time and relay information to the command center, right? Not only that, we know about the legislation in India, and that was a difficult one for us to solve. In case there is an accident on the road, the driver could be jailed for 10 years, 10 lakh rupees a fine. That was something very difficult. There was nationwide strikes. But now, with the technology that we have, in case there is an incident, we are aided with live footage hours immediately. And the only instruction we give to our drivers is, police chowki ke paas leke jaake gadi khadi kar do. That's the only instruction we have. And then we back it up with everything that we have to do so that the vehicle starts moving. So I think some of the difficulties that we have is not so much with the product, but more with the journey that we are trying to solve. Right? And we've been doing it in parts.
Amazing. So basically we can now say that this whole journey is not only revolutionizing the automotive and logistics sector, but also maybe reducing the corruption on road.
Absolutely.
And making drivers
in the
more
industry.
safer.
For sure.
It's a difficult thing to answer, but let's make it very clear. We're not here to improve society in general, because that will be too big a target to pick up. But we want to do our bit to make it better. And I believe germination of good ideas doesn't take time in India. Because we have a lot of good people amongst the people, a few who do bad. So I think we are surely hopeful that many of the things that we are talking about in terms of trucking, and I've seen horrendous things happening over the last 40, 50 years, things will improve. It is just that you need, the thing which we really respond to is economics. So if it is profitable, I will do anything. So why not do good when it is profitable?
Right. So one last question. And so do you think that could there be a scenario where EVs will come into this segment and EVs will dominate the short haul logistics while LNG and hydrogen trucks take over the long-haul operations?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a journey that we're paving as well. Greenline is 100% invested into any transportation that is sustainable, and EVs is also something that we will solve. When we understand that EV will have its life in terms of building up the entire strategic network and the fact that we need to make EVs 100% renewable. Now, in terms of what LNG is doing, there is already a lot of investment as well as announcements by the government that by 2030, 33% of the heavy trucks will be converted to LNG. And I think the journey has begun with us. We now control a very major part of the market share, and the fact that we are also manufacturing trucks, creating gas stations, building that whole ecosystem makes us very open and available for any kind of a service and product that one requires. So I think, moving ahead, there will be LNG that will solve for long-haul trucking, specifically because of the kind of cargoes that you carry, the kind of efficiency that is expected out of the truck and the customer in terms of his products and services that he expects. And EV is going to solve for a lot of short haul in the momentum or in the interim period, till such time that we created a dotted network of electric vehicles across the country. For Greenline, our journey is also on the EV heavy segment, and we will come to that chapter very soon.
Amazing.
I mean, since you asked the question, is EV only for short haul? For the time being, yes. But watch this space, it might change. The reason I'm saying this is because not enough has been done in the EV till now. It is still pretty new. And to say that we have arrived at a stable system is wrong. Okay. We will definitely launch the EV by next year. It will start as usual with the conventional solution. But at least I, for one, do not believe that we have arrived at a level of maturity in technology in EV where you can make very deterministic statements about the future of EV. Ultimately, I think somebody was saying that a EV vehicle, I don't know what to name the manufacturer, is actually more polluting than, which is true if you're going to take a very suboptimal view of EV. The solution to EV is well to wheel. It essentially means if I am going to use fossil for creating electricity, I mean, you don't have to worry about where you use it, it is bad. So this whole transformation we have in this country to move to sustainable energy production will probably be the sustainable factor for EV to succeed. And people like us have the job of ensuring that all sectors of the industry gets served by electric vehicles. And the reason for that I say is because, I don't know, petrol and diesel, before that things used to be drawn by horse carriages, and you wouldn't believe that most of the Western world thought that diesel and petrol is a big solution to the pollution of those days. You know what I'm saying. Because the horses and bullocks and everything else were a far more polluting factor in the cities. Of course, there was very clean diesel and petrol for many years, and I do believe that we have worked a lot in cleaning it up. But by now, we have come to a stage, I think, where we feel diesel is as bad as the horse-drawn carriages, or maybe worse. We'll get to electric vehicles, and that is the final solution, I guess. Now, is it that, or is it HEV? Is it going to be hydrogenized? There are lots of options, and everything is immature right now. So there's a lot of work which needs to be done. Right. Batteries, lithium was invented in 1986 by John Goodenough. He is a Nobel Prize winner, and he didn't patent his invention. So China took it away. We were not good enough to do it at that time because we never thought anything like that will happen. So what is essential for us is to look out for those options where you're not constrained by various commercial considerations, but you're constrained only by the need to develop and do something which is sustainable. And I think we have enough capability to do it. That's what I believe.
Right, right. So we'll get in detail about the EV part later in our panel discussion 5. But right now, what we can do is we can take up 1 to max 2 questions.
Tentative, do you have any idea about LNG truck cost? What is the cost of LNG truck? And what is the capacity of the truck?
See, currently we make the heaviest truck possible, 55 tons.
55 tons.
It's a tractor trailer,
Okay.
and it's what, maybe we can talk about price later.
Yeah, because
I don't
price,
want to do it in
because prices must, because
But don't worry, I can only tell you, Mr. Salim, if you're running a 55-ton truck diesel, after 2 or 3 years, you'll start making more money. Till then, you'll make the same amount of money as you make with diesel.
No, that's why, because I should hope, because if I invest money on LNG truck, I should get good amount from client, but client is not paying and much amount. They say cheap, paying cheap, yeah.
You have
That's
people who are ready to buy 3,000 trucks, and I'm not selling it.
no.
I'm a technologist, you know. I don't really sell anything.
Yeah, that's so, because if
So I can assure you that it is very sustainable, and the costs are sustainable over a period. You will end up making more money if you're running the truck for about 7 or 8 years. In about 3 years, you'll probably make as much money as diesel. Only thing, you'll earn more and spend a little more for the 3 years.
Okay. Let's hope. Thank you.
We can
The prices of trucks, I don't know, I'm seeing a person who is not from India. I don't know if you're from Europe, sir, or America. So there is something called moon price. Right? And the moon price, after that, this truck is sold at 70% and 60% discount. So what are you talking about price? I don't know. It is a contract which has arrived between 2 people based upon who can give what. And when I talk about price here, it will be the moon price. It doesn't make sense. So there is printed, and after that, it's contracted. I don't know if I'm right, but I worked with Daimler for years, and I know exactly how it works. So don't worry about price, it will be fine.
What is the evaporation percentage against the alternate fuel?
See, over a period of 10 days, it is 1%.
Thank you, panel.
Thank you.